Welcome to the Feline Meditation Center. Breathe in, breathe out. You weigh less than a slice of bread. Alright, so unlike my usual video essays that cover broader discussion topics, this video is all about me and what annoys me in Dead by Daylight. I need some catharsis right now, and this is how I'm going to get it out. Things that grind my gears in Dead by Daylight. Number one, I hate playing killers that have delayed gratification for using their power. I recently reviewed my tier list of all the killers in the game rated by personal enjoyment, and despite some changes since my last tier list video, the Knight, the Lich, and the Dark Lord remain to be some of my least favorite killers to play. I don't like having to open a VR chat menu to choose a power, and I especially don't like how every one of these killers straight up doesn't have a functional power if it's misused. With Deathslinger, I shoot you and I deal damage. If I miss, I reload and my power is back up again. Vecna misuses Mage Hand and Fly of the Damned once, and he does not have a functional chase power for 20 plus seconds. Meanwhile, playing the Knight is like having those imaginary arguments in your head where, oh, if they do this, then I'll do this, but they might expect me to do that, so I'll counter with, and the game's over. It's over. I overthought too much and the game is just over. Doctor should be down here as well, because what do you mean I shocked this survivor and they got to buffer their input vault from 3 meters away because of a ping difference? Trapper and Skull Merchant are just miserable to play, and I don't need to say any more. But none of these compare to my number one least favorite killer of all time, the Trickster. The definition of delayed gratification, Jiwoon has a power that rarely feels more impactful than landing a basic attack. You pull up the knives, which slows you down and takes practically the same amount of time as Deathslinger to prepare, but even longer to put down, in hopes of tagging somebody with 2 knives before they round a corner. More than half of the hits that I land with the knives feel like I would have gotten with a basic attack anyway, so pulling out the power feels like an elaborate form of rage bait, but for me specifically. Then there's the infuriating visual inconsistency with his power in that he throws his knives from both arms towards a point in the distance. At medium ranges you can get pretty precise with them, but trying to use the power at close range, especially if the survivor runs into you, is an exercise in futility. He is far and away the killer that stands to benefit from the most survivor mistakes, while only feeling decently strong when the survivor makes a clear-cut one. And this is the same problem that I have with playing Trapper, where the killer is only good if the survivors are bad. That doesn't give me agency to play the killer properly, it just means that my opponents don't know what they're doing, and that's not satisfying gameplay. Yes, the rework for Trickster is on its way, but it's more of a gameplay update. A lot of the changes felt like set dressing, wherein the new visuals were attempting to distract me from the fact that I was simply playing Trickster, but he gets stronger more situationally now. Maybe the pacing will see some adjustments as soon as we see the rework hit live servers, but I just can't stand playing Trickster, much less many other killers with powers that interrupt their movement for delayed gratification. Number 2, indoor maps. Now, I've complained plenty about indoor maps in my time, and I still do. I made a video about them a while back that I still stand by, and I'd like to reiterate my points here about them. Indoor maps suck to play on because of how they interrupt the fundamentals of Dead by Daylight gameplay. The strongest strategy in Dead by Daylight is centered around your ability to gather information and act accordingly. As a killer, if you see that generator has recently made progress but see no scratch marks nearby, you can reasonably deduce that the survivor is hiding in a locker or around a corner at the nearest tile. If they say step out of that tile, they have chosen to miss position and can get punished for it accordingly. On indoor maps, the survivor could be around any corner and might have left the generator way sooner because they haven't been able to visually confirm your location ahead of time. They can also keep on walking in pretty much any direction they want because the enclosed area means that they can never miss position by leaving a tile. Combine this with Sprint Burst, and information that the killer could gather just goes out the window. Ah geez, here are some scratch marks, but they're from a player that used Sprint Burst, so I have no idea how close by they actually are. Most of the killers also have powers that become far more awkward to navigate in indoor maps. I'm not talking about just Billy's chainsaw sprints becoming useless on the treatment theater, but also Singularity's biopods losing the lines of sight, or Cenobite's chains becoming annoyingly difficult to land, and so on and so on. Even if Deathslinger can perform better on indoor maps because of how he can sneak up on survivors more easily, his entire play pattern devolves into holding W to the next short pallet and shooting them over it. I know it's the easiest way to play the killer, but I find joy in landing a variety of shots, not just these ones over and over again. I can't imagine that this is very fun for the Survivor either. When I do choose to play Survivor as well, I have a more difficult time playing against most killers on indoor maps because I can't reliably react to their proximity to me. At least not without relying on perks or pre-running all the time. The only killers that tend to thrive on indoor maps are the stealthy ones. My previous stance was that if a killer has to rely on bad map design to have a functional power, then the killer is badly designed. Having given it some more thought though, the statement feels invalidating for people who enjoy playing Ghostface. Though the jumpscare aspect of stealthy killers is what gives them a unique playstyle, while still playing into the fantasy of classic corny horror tropes. That much I can respect. What I don't like is that these killers have such underwhelming powers that they need numbered tweaks to feel viable, but they can't be buffed too much because their smoking gun of evidence for how strong they are always circles back around to, oh, what if I roll an indoor map? In my mind, it simply sounds insane to say, yeah, the Onryo is just okay unless you get really lucky with the map RNG and land on exactly the one map that makes her a good killer. With Trickster's Delusion coming to Dead by Daylight on the 17th, there will be 45 maps in the game, 6 of which are primarily indoors. I refuse to believe that a minority of maps can be considered well designed on behalf of the minority of largely underpowered killers. And even then, the only killer that really enjoys playing on the game is the Knight or the Legion with Iridescent button, and a lot of people hate facing those killers. Also, out of these 6 indoor maps, do you know how many of them are Dead by Daylight originals? 1. The Treatment Theater. Every other indoor map is attached to a franchise, which feels equally lame given that each of these franchises has outdoor locations that could have been reimagined in the Dead by Daylight space. Well, except for Saw, the indoors thing is kind of the point, but even then we don't have a map tied to every franchise, so I guess with this one, we just got unlucky. Indoor maps also make the painful outdoor maps stick out even more. I can grit my teeth and bear the mandatory Hawkins-weighted kick in the nuts, but the 2-tap of Hawkins into Badham Preschool or Eyrie of Crows or Garden of Joy is a little too much for me to bear. If it were Badham Preschool and then Garden of Joy, okay, sure, I can kind of manage that because at least they play differently and have some things that are redeemable on them, but Lord help me if I ever get an indoor map and have it followed up by one of those monstrosities. And one final thing, after I made my video talking about perk variety, I have continued recording my match information on a spreadsheet. And you also all might be pleased to know that I'm still playing on indoor maps in 1 out of every 4 games. I feel like there's some psyop going on and that there's a developer at DBD that hates me specifically. Number 3, Deathslinger's bugs. Just over a year ago, on the 11th of March 2025, Dead by Daylight released the Tokyo Ghoul chapter. Not only was the release of Kaneki controversial to many in the community, but it was also on this patch where I and many other Deathslinger mains started experiencing the most debilitating of Caleb's bugs, the hit registration bug. Despite countless reports and clips detailing the experience, including dutifully submitted game logs, a level that has never been required from the community in regards to a killer bug this damning, the bug is still in the game an entire year later. You aim and fire at a target and there's an occasional chance that your shot goes right through their hitbox or it hits them and bounces off. This has happened at various ranges, in wide open spaces, through narrow gaps, against survivors that are moving, against survivors that are holding still, and on so many different maps. In all these clips that I'm showing you, the Deathslinger player was on 60 ping or less, all from different regions too. The only thing that seems to be consistent is that the player is on DBD servers, which have been known to stutter a lot. Then there's the aiming bug, where the survivor cannot see Deathslinger aiming down sights. Now, when I was playing some Survivor games, I never noticed this in the few that I played against Deathslinger, so maybe it's been fixed, but I also haven't seen many people vocally complain about it at this point, so perhaps that tentative change that we received a few weeks ago actually did the trick. I'm not sure though. Someone in the comments will definitely tell me if this has been fixed or not, which took the team 10 months to iron out if they did. I can see how some people might see Dickslinger as a net positive for the Deathslinger player by making his shots harder to react to. The thing is, good Deathslinger players know how to predict survivor movements based on how they react to the visual of Deathslinger aiming down his sights. If they can't see Caleb raising his gun, then it's likely that they'll go off of the sound effect instead and make a latent dodge or not dodge at all. Ironically, this leaves the deathslinger player with less agency over their power because they are unable to tell how a survivor will react to something that they can't see happening consistently. It's half of the reason why I rarely, if ever, go for long-range shots anymore. The other half is due to a newer bug, the chain collision or chain break bug. First spotted 5 months ago in October, Deathslinger has a bug where his chain will break as if it is being pulled through an obstacle if the chain is within 1 meter of an obstacle to its left. It also breaks at normal collision speeds if the chain is visibly colliding with an obstacle, making the skill of chain manipulation, by moving the camera to pull the chain away from obstacles, arbitrarily difficult. Beyond that though, this means that landing a long-range shot in an area that isn't completely wide open will almost always result in a premature chain break, invalidating M1 perks, downs on injured survivors, but more importantly, it invalidates iridescent coin hits. When Deathslinger has 4 good add-ons with 3 more merely serving as lesser versions, it's my personal opinion that a bug should not be eliminating one of his only good options, especially since I feel like Eerie Coin already suffers from consistency issues. Indoor maps aren't good for Eerie Coin shots, the ADS bug makes long-range shots more difficult, and now there's a bug where the chain will break prematurely. Do you see how this is a problem? Above every other bug that Deathslinger has, this is the one that is the easiest to repeat with consistency, and it is back-breaking for the killer. This bug has been the difference between wins and losses for me on a small number of occasions because of how game-breaking it actually is, and here we are, 5 months later, with no update whatsoever. I have done my part in reporting the chain break bug with clips on the DBD beta hub, which Behavior has repeatedly announced as their best platform for reporting bugs within the game. This post was marked as a medium to low priority. A bug that completely screws players out of long-range hits and destroys one of Deathslinger's only good add-ons is a medium priority. If you haven't watched this video or heard me talk about this before and have played Deathslinger, you probably thought that's just how the chain breaks, or that you got unlucky inexplicably. No, you're actually just getting screwed over by a medium to low priority bug that's been in the game for about 11 Concords now. And this doesn't even begin to cover the most consistent but sneakiest bug that Deathslinger still faces to this day, hitboxes. I dedicated an entire video to showcasing some of the worst ones, but if you want a reminder, you can shoot through this gap on the Dead Dong Saloon main building window, beneath these circular hay bales on the Coldwind maps, but it'll be a cold day in hell where you can shoot through the gap on these trees on Badham Preschool. The same goes for Fallen Refuge, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, and Greenville Square, but for some reason, Garden of Joy escaped this fate. My personal favorite example as of most recently is this stack of boxes on the Backwater Swamp, which, like, come on guys. Even if the Deathslinger is one of the biggest proprietors of these gaps, these shots are his main form of skill expression from the player, and these shots are equally the main thing that he has going for himself. If he cannot land gap shots, he doesn't have the ability to take a health state immediately like Huntress or the stealth and rearming of Springtrap. I still posit that Deathslinger is stronger than both of these characters because of his lethality in the 1v1, but games can slip away from the Deathslinger much more quickly than a Huntress in my experience. And finally, number 4, the wider community fucking sucks. In 2018, I made the claim in a League of Legends video that toxicity isn't a valid reason to quit playing a video game. My reasoning at the time was that factors external to the video game itself should not correlate to the faults of the game. 19-year-old May was a dumbass. What I didn't understand back then was that toxicity in any environment can very much influence what you choose to spend your time on. It doesn't matter if you have that dream job. If your coworkers are awful pieces of shit, you won't want to keep working there after a while. And this is how I feel about a lot of the people that I passively interface within the Dead by Daylight community. I have a lot of fun streaming and making videos because I get to share an experience with an audience, and that's really cool to me. My Discord and Twitch communities are filled with tons of bright and lovely people, and I'm very blessed and honored to have such wonderful individuals that go out of their way to show support for what I do. Truly, thank you. But if I peel back the layer by nothing more than a button press or two, it gets disheartening to want to continue playing this game. Endgame chats are often empty or vitriolic. Comments on official Twitter posts or in other Twitch chat streams are often unctuous, disgraceful, self-aggrandizing, and attention-seeking. Some of you are very lucky to be hiding behind a computer screen because some of the shit you say would get you a black eye or a broken nose. If it's not obvious, I don't want to feel that way about my work environment. I want to make connections, but it is just impossible sometimes with how everyone has to be a sore winner or loser over a video game that functions properly only about 85% of the time. And I know it's impossible to ask for everyone to get along. I merely wish the toxicity wasn't bubbling so rampantly just beneath the surface. Anyway, that's what it's been on my mind a lot about Dead by Daylight recently, and why I've been hard-pressed to make more content on it lately. Thanks for listening to my rant. Take care, and goodbye.